Well, thank you, everyone. We'll now proceed with the last paper on this session from Anouk Gelan of Hasselt University in Belgium, a paper on intercultural communication in the Meuse-Rhine Euregio, an intercom project or an interreg project, which, from what I can take from the abstracts, seems to see language as well. A project which, as well as being concerned with language, also has a strong focus on culture. So I think there has been a theme developing through many of today's papers. Anouk.
Okay, thank you. Can everybody hear me? I don't know if my voice is coming through okay. Yes. So yes, my name is Anouk Gelan. I am a researcher at the Center of Applied Linguistics of Hasselt University, which is situated in the east of Belgium, near the border with the Netherlands and Germany. I am closer to the mic. Yes. I'm actually here to represent my colleague Martine Vrians, which more of you will know. Unfortunately, she was not able to be here, so I will speak in her name as well. So indeed, my presentation will be about a project we initiated. It is an Interreg 4 project funded by the European Union, and it's called Intercultural Communication in the Euregio Meuse-Rhine. Let's see. I will talk about this Euregio Meuse-Rhine. Where is it situated? Then about the need we discovered in this Euregio. There is a need we want to do something about. So I will talk about the project aims, talk briefly about research questions in our project and the methodology we adopted. And then the development phase of the e-learning module. That's the phase that we are in right now. It's the last year of this 3-year project, so we hope to present the final products at the beginning of next year. Euregio Meuse-Rhine. This is one of the many unions of collaborating border regions in Europe. They are collaborating internationally. This Euregio counts 5 sub-regions. We have the province of Limburg in Belgium, where I come from. That's the blue part. There is the French-speaking community of Belgium with the Liège region, also in Belgium. There is a third one, the German-speaking community in Belgium. Then we have in the Netherlands the southern part of the province of Limburg, also Dutch-speaking. And then there is Germany with the Aachen region in orange. So these are 5 sub-regions situated around the river Meuse and west of the river Rhine. It has about 3.9 million inhabitants, and the geographical area covers around 11,000 square kilometers. And this Euregio, we could say, could be defined as a sort of mini Europe, because we have on a small geographical area 3 different languages and 5 different cultures united in one Euregio. So in this Euregio, a lot of youngsters, as soon as they start higher education or start working, they tend to leave their home region to go to a university in a bigger city. And it even concerns exchange students. Students, they tend to choose a more exotic, distant location for their exchange. And that is a pity, because we have a lot of languages, foreign language learning and speaking possibilities nearby. But, people tend to go out and look for another place to study and to work. On the other hand, I think I've got to go to the next slide. On the other hand, we also have important immigrant groups in the Euregio. The most important ones are Polish immigrants and Turkish immigrants. And unfortunately, in this population, we have a rather high dropout in higher education still. A lot of immigrants don't succeed in higher education, and research has shown that this is often because of a failure in language skills. It's the instructional language is not known enough, and this makes higher education difficult. It is also a barrier for other foreign languages learning. So, in the Euregio, although we have other languages very nearby, a lot of possibilities to speak another language, to use another languages, our youngsters keep on making the same persistent language errors. They keep on repeating them over and over again. And very often these are interference errors, so errors caused by interference of the mother tongue or interference of English, which is the most dominant foreign language in our region. And on the other hand, we have noticed that there are, not only among youngsters, also between other people of the Euregio, a lot of cultural stereotypes that exist inside our Euregio. So we don't know each other well enough because there's not enough contact, and that is what this project wants to do something about. So, general aims of this project are to optimize studying and working in the Euregio Meuse-Rhine, to prevent brain drain and dropout. And how do we want to do this? We want to improve language skills and culture skills of youngsters of the Euregio. We want to stimulate them to learn to communicate in the language of their neighbor, thereby also respecting the culture of their neighbors. This is the only way we can make communication fluent and without misunderstandings, because cultural stereotypes often lead to miscommunication. So operational aims of the project, they were to carry out a research on cultural differences within the Euregio Meuse-Rhine, the 5 cultures I was speaking about. And then the main output of the project, electronic modules for semi-autonomous language and culture learning. These are being developed by our team of partners. So on the next slide you can see, I hope you can read the white letters, the 7 partners. We have the University of Hasselt, of which I am a researcher. We have the University of Liège, the University RWTH in Aachen, and then there are some university colleges in the Netherlands. We have the Hogeschool Zuid, Maastricht and Heerlen. Hogeschool, which yes, PHL, the Provinciale Hogeschool is also University College in my city, Hasselt. And then for another German partner is the Gymnasium St. Leonhard in Aachen. This is a school. And finally, Comart is a spin-off, a university spin-off, who will market the electronic modules as soon as they are ready. So this project is structured in 2 phases. There is a research phase and a development phase. Both have 2 parts. There is the language part, and our research questions for the language part were the following. Which interference errors and other language, under general language errors, do native speaker youngsters make in the languages of the other EMR border regions? And second, which interference errors and other language errors do Polish and Turkish immigrants make when they speak these or write in these foreign languages? And are those errors similar to the errors of the native youngsters? So what we did was the following. We inventorized the most frequent, most important language errors and we structured them by a language couple. So we have 5 target languages, which are, you can see them over there, Dutch, French, German, Turkish, and Polish. So these are the mother tongues of the students who will be using the modules to learn one of the 3 target languages, Dutch, French, and German. These inventories, they contain both general language errors, so errors, general language mistakes caused by overgeneralization, for example, and the typical interlanguage mistakes. And interference errors were labeled as such whenever the link with the mother tongue could be proven. So if there is an interference from the mother tongue, for example, Polish, then the error in question was labeled as such. This work was done by language teachers teaching the language as a foreign language, so specialists in contrastive didactics. In the second phase, these errors, these lists of errors, they were labeled by native speakers, and they judged whether those errors were very disturbing for a native speaker, maybe even stigmatizing the person making the mistake, whether these were errors hindering communication and causing misunderstandings, or whether there were errors non-disturbing for a native speaker. So it goes without saying that when we develop exercise material, then there will be less attention, of course, for those non-disturbing errors. This work was done by other partners, so it was a first kind of a validation, and it was done by the native speaker partners, which are, of course, also in our consortium. This work was the basis for the development of the e-learning courses. This development is being done right now by the language teaching professionals. And there is a validation, each time a part is finished, there is a validation by a native speaker partner to make sure language use is authentic and culture is represented in an authentic way. So that's as to the language part. And the cultural part our research mostly focused on culture and cultural skills. You can see our research question on the culture part. Firstly, which are the cultural attributes of each of the sub-regions in the Euregio and of their migrant youngsters in particular? To what extent do sub-regions differ in the field of cultural attributes? In what way are we different? In what way are maybe some stereotyped ideas referring to any reality? Which are the cultural attributes of the first generation of Turkish and Polish immigrants? And in what way are these cultural attributes of the Polish and Turkish youngsters different from our cultural attributes? So you could say, why exercises on culture? Now, this theme has been touched by a previous speaker. Are good language skills not enough then to learn a language? Or if you talk the language proficiently, is that not enough to communicate with your partner? And in that case, can an app take over our communication and do the talking for us? Well, no, because good language skills are not sufficient for feeling well or functioning well in a new region. Because culture influences verbal as well as non-verbal behavior. We might not be conscious of this, but it is true. Culture determines our perception of things. And the fact that we share a language does not mean that we share the same culture. For example, Flemish, I'm Flemish myself, I speak Dutch, but that doesn't mean that I understand a Dutchman or a Dutch woman when she's or he is speaking our own language, but we don't share the same culture. There are quite some differences that are important to be aware of when communicating with each other. An insufficient knowledge of the other person's culture leads to miscommunication and misunderstandings. Why? Because we cannot perceive another person, another culture, other than through the glasses of our own culture. And it's just part of our human nature that things that are different, we perceive them as we are afraid of it. We think they are bad. And that's why some stereotyped ideas see the day, such as Germans are stiff. One of the stereotypes, Belgians are stupid. That's what they say anyway. I don't agree. And Dutchmen are loud. That's these kind of stereotyped ideas that people carry.
Pass on quickly.
I'll pass on, yes. So what is culture? Well, Mr. Drachler has spoken about this, so I will not go too deeply into it. I suppose most of you know the triangle. We are all humans. Human nature is universal, and this is what unites us all. This is what separates us from animals. It is innate. And then we are all part of a group, of a category. We are part of a culture. That's the second layer. This is also learned. These are values, ideas, practices passed on from generation to generation. And it is specific for a group. In our research, we consider a culture as a geographical culture. So we take geography as a starting point to define the groups, define the cultures. But above that, there is, of course, personality. A person is also an individual. You can't generalize just putting somebody in one culture and saying it's a German, he will be formal, to give an example. There's also personality, which is partly innate and partly learned. All individuals belonging to one group, to the same group, share the same layers of culture. And the two definitions were given just before. Culture is double. Well, you have practices. Practices are visible. These are the visible parts of culture, and you can observe them when you look at a culture's symbols. Which jargon do they use? Which hairstyles, flags? Which heroes' personality are important for a certain culture? Models of behavior, rituals. These are all visible aspects of culture, and we refer to them by the term cultural practices in our modules. But then there is the middle part in red, and these are the values we share, and they are not visible, so they are often unconscious. So this distinction of the inner node, the values, and on the other hand, the practices is important. Well-known studies have measured and compared cultures. They're generally national culture, bigger regional cultures. And you can see some names of authors well known in the field of cultural, intercultural skills and cultural dimensions. But so far, there was no research on the culture of our EMR sub-regions, smaller regions inside Europe. There's no comparative research, so that is something we wanted to do something about. That's why we did a survey research, and the cultural dimensions we studied or we surveyed were the following. I suppose some of you know those poles, the cultural dimensions. Cultures can be situated or can be labeled as more monochrome cultures or more polychrome cultures, more individualistic cultures, more collectivistic cultures, etc. Because indeed we are making modules for the three target languages, Dutch, German, and French, and we are making a combination for each, a module for each combination of languages. So we combine one of the source languages and cultures of the Euregio with each of the languages, cultures of each of the other languages and cultures of the region. So actually there are 5 target languages, because we're not only looking at the standard language, we have regional linguistic variations of Dutch. The Dutch I speak is different from the Dutch spoken in the Netherlands, and the same goes for the German from Belgium and the German from Euregio, Aachen. At the beginning of 2013, we will distribute for free 20,400 e-learning modules in the Euregio. This is to ensure that the work we are doing is being used and spread all over the Euregio as it is meant to be. So when we started the development of the e-learning modules, we needed to set up a design, one design for the set of modules. They can be labeled as tutorial call, so the computer as the tutor, the teacher is in the machine. It is a learning program which has a recognizable teaching presence inside. And that is why the e-learning modules will be suited for autonomous learning in full self-study, as well as semi-autonomous blended learning, in which a teacher will take a part of the instruction in a classical environment, a combination of both. The modules are they will be suited for teachers as well as for higher education students. So the content of the modules really focused on this target group of students, the student population. And we want to take into account different styles of learning with these learning modules. Different students have different learning preferences, so we include possibilities for visual learning, more auditory learning. And we, of course, with these 5 different source languages and cultures, we take into account all different linguistic and cultural backgrounds of our target groups. So we really aim at a tailor-made approach, tailor-made to the needs of the student. The modules they will be developed with dedicated authoring software. This means software specifically designed to develop e-learning courses for languages and culture. And we will, well, it will be a web service actually. The modules will be offered online, and students can use the exercise material online, and they can extract exercise material from a database. So what we are making is a remedial course. We want to do something very specifically, something about these typical persistent language errors that youngsters keep on making. These courses, they will have interactive language exercise material based on these inventories of language errors we have made. Inventories based on error analysis. So we have, we can anticipate on the errors that the student will make, and this means that we can give very tailor-made, very specific feedback to the students. On the other hand, there will be interactive culture exercise material based on our research, the regional culture research. Another important principle for the design was communicative language learning. When you do this focus on form, it does not mean that you cannot work in a communicative way. The end goal of learning is still the communicative goal. So in our approach, we try to use communicative, authentic contexts. And all language competences are addressed. There are listening activities, reading, speaking, interacting, writing activities in the modules. So maybe I will go more quickly through this slide. I was talking about the teacher and the machine. The instruction or the teaching presence is expressed in 3 different ways. Three different tutorial modes. The presentation. Interaction is limited to taking up new information, multimedia information, and it doesn't go further than that. Then there is the exploration mode. the learners do the asking, they click on audio, they click on images, they click on video, and they get more information. So the student has a choice of going into themes or items he finds interesting. And then there is the interrogation tutorial mode, the most present one, the most important one. These are the exercises in which there is a lot of interactivity asked from the student. Student has to give a response, written or oral, and he gets feedback. He gets the correct and incorrect answers, a score, and feedback, theoretic feedback. Well, this is quite evident. There's a progression built in. Contrastive approach is very important. We compare the source language and the source culture to the target language. So if we take one module as an example, for example, the module Dutch-French, this is for Dutch-speaking, Belgian students maybe planning to do an exchange in Liège and wanting to learn French. Such a module contains a part with language exercises and one with culture exercises. And inside the language exercises, we distinguish between the general language errors and then the interference errors. So contrastively, Dutch to French. In the culture part, the distinction between practices, the visible properties of culture, and the dimensions, contrastively. The communicative approach, we have listed 15 themes that will be used for the content of the exercise material. Some of them are accommodation, student life, communication, clothing, all those kinds of communicative themes that are used in the exercise material. Yes, the structure of the learning module will be as such. You can see at the left, exercise part, at the right, theory part. In the exercises, we have three structures, as you could say, three large exercise parts, with the language exercises, pronunciation errors, spelling errors, morphology, etc. The cultural practices, you can recognize the 15 communicative themes. And then the dimensions, or the cultural attributes, which are listed in the middle. So the student has a choice to do a linear progression, follow the exercises as they were conceived by the authors in the linear chronologic way. But they can also choose a theme, a communicative theme, for example, hierarchy, study, work, choose this theme, and then they will get a selection of exercises from the database with exercises focusing only on this communicative theme. So each time you go into the module, you can make your own selection of exercise material or themes you want to work on. When doing the exercises, you get links to go to a theory page. You can also, if you are more of a deductive learner, study the theory first and then do sets of exercises linked to a specific theme you have chosen. And then I think I'll just show just two examples of exercises. So we are really in the middle of the development, so I cannot show you the environment, not online either. Even this software is being developed, it's being re-engineered at this moment. But this is an example of a language exercise. I'm not sure you can see. So the student sees a certain image, and this is an example. The pronunciation of nasal sounds is a problem for Dutch-speaking students because this nasal sound, they do not exist in Dutch. So an example of an exercise is working with pictures and audio. So does this image refer to a vin, vent, vont, or vent? So you have to choose between the sounds to distinguish these nasal sounds. just a small example from one culture exercise. This is my last slide. One of the cultural dimensions are masculinity and femininity. Yes, it's in Dutch. In feminine cultures, family is important. Career is not the most important thing in life. So there's a good distinction between work and private life. In our culture, for example, a career is more important. It's more masculine oriented. So in the picture, you can see a woman working hard on the dishes, and her husband reading the paper, and it says, let me see, darling, I'm reading about some families in which the woman also has to work. I guess we have made better arrangements for ourselves, haven't we? So how would a Liège student interpret this? Then we give some multiple choice option. Well, maybe the student might think that the man is really dominated by the woman. Maybe he will feel that the woman is a feminist. Or maybe, and this is of course the correct answer, this is a normal situation in Dutch Limburg, a feminine society where the roles between man and woman are well defined, well divided. Of course, you will get some feedback with this answer, giving more explanation. So just two websites. If you want more information about the project, you can find it over there. The website of our Center of Applied Linguistics, and then there is also the website of the spin-off, Comart International. They will market the e-modules, and they will also distribute the authoring software for e-learning. So if you would be interested in creating language or culture exercises yourself to publish a handbook, you can contact them and use this software. So thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you in particular. And thank you in particular for being able to compete with telephone and other conversations going on during your talk, which was quite unusual. We're come to time, but I think I should allow one or two questions. I will finish. All right, Alex.
I'm not going into the question of the female and man, because
that's
not only one correct answer on that multiple choice question. I want to ask you, on the 5 languages and 5 cultures, do you include translanguaging between those languages? And do you include orientation on the dialect of Limburg, Western Limburg, Middle Limburg, and Eastern Limburg, which are closely related languages or dialects, which can be used as a transfer position for learners, in addition to learning dominant or high languages? Thank you.
Yes. We haven't gone as far as that. Or actually, we will only include references to these dialects in a receptive way. We will provide examples of dialectal expressions, for example, but this is, by the way, one of the cultural exercises. If you go to a different country, will you try to talk to those people in their own dialect? Do you think that's appropriate? Or do you think it might give a strange impression? So we don't go as far as that. We do keep to stick to the national language, and we keep into account differences, mostly lexical and also pronunciation differences between the linguistic variants of Dutch and German. No dialects.
Okay, thank you very much.